Facebook live thingy froze for some reason, but it's okay. You guys are here. So Renegade time freedom. So let me know when in the chat if you can. What anything happened last week since we had our last talk? Did you think about anything? Did you have any other questions? Anything you weren't really sure of? Anything that come up recently to make you think, I really got to get a hold of my time because, even during the last week, things were chaotic and I had no free time to myself. I didn't have time to, be creative the way I wanted to, or I was just constantly jumping from one urgency to the other. Yeah, Victoria, you have a question? Or you want to add to that, or you just saying hi? Okay. Well, oh, and like I said before you got here, I was just saying, if you, I hope you can hear me. I had my headphone on last week, but anyone on Facebook Live, they couldn't hear what you guys were asking, so I realized it didn't work so well, so I'm gonna leave it off, and the audio might not be as good, but if you can hear me, that's great. One thing that I want you to remember, okay, is for this week that kept coming to my head and people I was talking to and things I was thinking about is the tyrannical rule of urgency, right? There's always some kind of urgency that comes up. And that's why like when Lacey was asking me at the end of last class about, how to get that free time because it feels like no matter what there's no free time, right? And I was saying, well there's never going to be free time, right? Like it's just like money. Like who has extra money laying around? Well, no one, right? People have money invested and they have money in savings and they have money doing different things, right? But no one just has extra money floating around because if it was floating around, you do something with it. You'd either invest it, right? Or you'd blow it on something, which is fine too, no judgment. But the point is like nature abhors that vacuum, right? So whenever there's a vacuum in money or time, that vacuum will be filled. And it's the same thing with time. So you have to get in the habit of taking control of that time and not letting it be plucked away by the tyranny of the urgencies, right? And whenever someone needs to borrow a minute of your time, right, they're not, and this is not a judgment on anyone, but everyone thinks of themselves, right? Like everyone think, they're the most important person. And now some people are obviously more compassionate, more giving than others, but really, when someone is asking you for your time, can you help me do this? Can you help me do that? Can I borrow you for a minute? They're not really thinking, typically they're not thinking like, well, I don't want to take their time because it's valuable to them. Like people, and especially if they're not really time conscious, they don't really think about that, right? So you have to communicate that value both on a conscious level and on a subconscious level as well. And like I was saying last week, if you don't value your own time, you can't expect someone to value your time, on your behalf, right? It's just like showing up confidently, right? You can't have someone else believe in yourself until you believe in yourself. If you're launching a new product or you're launching a similar product at a different price point, right? And you're nervous about it. Well, people pick up on that subconsciously, right? And if you're trying to offer something that you're not completely on board with, you completely and you don't completely agree with, they're going to pick up on that. And your hesitancy in offering a product or service is going to come out even on a subconscious level, and they're going to pick up on it. So you're going to say, "Do you want this thing that I'm offering?" And they're going to be like, yeah, I don't know, right? They're going to pick that up. But if you're saying confident, like this service that I'm offering is life changing, I love it. I know you're going to love it too. They're going to pick up on that confidence, not only because of the way you're presenting it, but even on a subconscious level, they'll pick up on that and they'll understand that value and accept it from, your slight mannerisms and your energy, your vibe, and everything like that, right? Well, it's the same with your time. If you value your time, you don't have to necessarily have a whole bunch of boundaries set up. People will just pick up on it on a subconscious level from your energy and from your little mannerisms and things like that, right? Um, so yeah, but the urgencies, they're always going to perceive their urgency, right? And a lot of things that people think are urgent are not necessarily urgent for you, right? You have to think of it like a lot like wealth. Wealthy, I think it's Robert Kiyosaki who said this, and I'm sure he borrowed it from someone else, right? But when it comes to building wealth, he would say that, like wealthy people will invest their money and then spend the rest, right? Whereas people who are not wealthy will have the inverted habit of they will spend their money and then try to invest what's left over, right? And then wealth isn't just about the money, it's about the habit of what do you do when you're getting that, right? One of the best I remember this really clued in for me one time. Part of the association I'm with in martial arts, it was like not just a martial art like kicking and punching association, but one for business development, leadership development, and networking. And we had an interview once with Tony Robbins actually came on and spoke to our association because his martial arts teacher was Jun Rhee, famous Taekwondo grandmaster, right? Since passed away. But anyway, and so he had ties to our organization. So he gave us like this quick 5 minute thing, and he was talking about wealth, and he made reference to the richest man in Babylon, which is a great book to read, not only for wealth development but for time, because it's the same concepts, right? It's the same principle. But he said, like, whenever you get money automatically before you spend it, you got to put 10% into savings, and then you got to 10% into your gift account. And the gift account is like, it just goes out wherever you give it away. You can donate it to a charity, you can give it to a person, but you give it away with no strings attached, right? And at first you're like, well, I don't know, 10, like that's a 10%'s a lot. Like, I don't know if I can do that. And he said, well, I'll tell you what, if you can't do 10% now, when you're not making a lot of money, you're definitely not going to do it in the future when you're making lots of money, right? If you can't do it now, you're definitely not going to go away 10% when you're a millionaire, right? So better to start it now because it's the habit that makes you. And it's the habit that generates that wealth, not the actual money itself, right? But what we do with it. And of course, if you're giving it away early, well, then a funny thing happens, right? The more you give away, the more it comes back to you, right? In a weird metaphysical way. It doesn't matter how it works, but it works. And obviously, when you're saving, you're going to be investing that. And investment is the habit that will build up wealth. Well, now it's the same with time, right? So when you have time, you have to pay yourself first with that time. But most people are the opposite, right? When they have free time, it goes to something else, like it goes to Facebook, right? Like we talked about last week, right? And you think if you want to be wealthy and say you want to pick a number, like if you want to pick, we picked the number $78 an hour last week, right? So we'll stick with that number. Okay. Um, sorry, give me a sec. I lost my train of thought. So yeah, long day today. Um, if you're getting that $78 an hour, so if you're getting a bunch of time and the time comes in, if you don't carve that out and say, I have this many hours, this much is going to myself, it's just going to get pulled in any other direction, right? That's where I was. So like you're on Facebook, for example, and your time's getting pulled in that. Well, now you got to think that you're paying Facebook $78 an hour in time to be on it scrolling mindlessly, right? And that will just help you reframe it a little bit. Now, I'm not saying never be on social media, but you have to be more aware of taking inventory of your time and how you're using it, right? And if you pay yourself first. So like for me personally, one of my most important things to do, how I pay myself in time first, is first thing in the morning. So first thing in the morning, after I, feed the cat, I usually wake up significantly earlier than my wife by a few hours, right? 2 or 3 hours. After the cat gets fed, I make my pot of tea, and then the next hour is block out time where nothing else happens. And it doesn't matter what I use it for, but it's my time. I might write, I might meditate, I might plan, whatever it is, but that hour is mine first before anything else happens. So I've paid myself first with that time, and nothing else will take away from that, right? Now, if I didn't have that, and I would say, well, I'd like to meditate sometime, I'd like to write sometime, I'd like to plan sometime, like I would, if I was waiting for extra time to do that, it would never come, right? It's not about, like I said before, it's not about time, it's about choices, right? So if you don't pay yourself first in that time, you're never going to get it, right? There's another good book. Again, this is more from a financial point of view. It's called Profit First. And if you're in any kind of business, even a small business, even if you're a solopreneur, you should get that book called Profit First. And it's the same concept about how, for business owners, we know this for business owners, you can go a decade running a business, paying all your bills, paying your staff, paying everything, and then getting what's left over, right? Well, you can go a decade and not be making any money at all and thinking one day all, one day all, one day all. When I finally get the expenses covered, when I finally get all the staff paid, but if you're not a priority, it won't ever happen, right? So you've got to make yourself priority. And I'm not saying that I'm not trying to be selfish, but the thing is, as a business owner or entrepreneur, if you guys were to treat an employee the way you treat yourself, like, you if you wouldn't work, right? If you're treating the employee that way, they'd walk away in a heartbeat. So we put so much pressure on ourselves that we wouldn't dare put on another person. So I'm not saying like, put yourself above anyone, but at least treat yourself as good as you treat one of your staff members or anyone else, right? But we tend to, sacrifice so much of ourselves for the business, for the practice, for the clients or whatever, and it's kind of it's not a long-term strategy because then we're going to get burnt out and then we won't have enough energy to continue being of service. So if you want to be of service for a longer period of time, you do have to treat yourself as good as you treat all of your clients and all the people that are kind of under your care, right? Um, so yeah, that was one thought that I had I wanted to share. So carve out that time. Now, if it might not be first thing in the morning for you, if you're not a morning person, like if you don't get up before your kids, then it's probably not an option for you to take that hour in the morning. But whenever it is, you've got to carve out that time, and then the phone gets shut off, no emails are checked, no social media, right? It's your time. Um, and if you want to give that time to Facebook during that hour, then by all means, go right ahead. But my hunch is that if I ask most people, especially like in our circles, like entrepreneurial circles on any scale, they don't want to just give their time away to anything like that, right? It just has to be put in the right perspective. Okay. Any questions about that so far? No? All right. Let me just see here. And it must pop on. The the other thing about getting control of your time is you have to remember that, the habits and the behaviors are the most important than the big goal that you have in your mind, right? So I call this the 1 minute rule. So when I start teaching people in holistic kung fu, when I have people in a holistic kung fu for the first time, it's the same with any activity though. Anything that people start, they get excited, right? So in kung fu especially, but you'll see it in anything. They get the uniform and they get the new shoes and they're signed up for it and they kind of have a few basics they can work out on their own, right? We'll have some videos for them to practice along with, and they get really excited. They say, "This is awesome. This is life changing. I'm going to train this for an hour a day, right? And it's going to be great, and I'm going to change my life." And then I always make a point of saying like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, slow down. Don't do that, right? Because this is what you're going to do. You're going to say that, and you'll go home and you'll practice one time for an hour, right? You'll be so excited that you'll put your uniform on, and then you'll move the coffee table, and you'll put the animals in the other room so they don't bug you, and then you'll have that whole hour to yourself in the living room. You'll love it, and you'll sweat, and you feel great. Okay. Well, the next day, the second day comes along, and you're like, yeah, it was really good yesterday. I think I can do that again, right? But then something happens, like maybe you don't want to put the dog or the cat in the other room because you feel bad because you locked them in there earlier when you were doing something. Or, the uniform is in the wash and we can't train the uniform won't have the same feel. So you're like, I'll do it tomorrow, right? And then it probably won't get done tomorrow. It won't get done the day after that. And good chance it won't ever get done away. Again, so what I tell everyone is, and again, you guys, if you're watching this, you've probably heard this before, but it needs to be repeated again and again and again because you'll find yourself falling into the same trap for other things, right? What I say is, I want you to practice for 1 minute a day, and that's it. 1 minute, and then cut it off. So set the timer. Okay, get in front of the mirror, wherever you want to go. Don't move the coffee table. Don't do all that stuff. Just find 1 minute exactly where you are and practice for that 1 minute until the timer goes up. And once timer's up, you stop and you walk away. Okay. But I still want to go. I'm excited. Okay, that's fine. Let that enthusiasm carry over to the next day, where you'll do another minute the next day and another minute the next day. Now do that for 2 weeks without fail. And if you can do that for 2 weeks without fail, then pat yourself on the back. Well, pat yourself on the back every day for completing it. It might seem so silly, like 1 minute. That's not a big deal, nothing to brag about. But I would much rather have a student brag about the 1 minute they did consistently for 2 weeks than someone brag about, oh, I'm starting this new thing and I got the new uniform and they post on social media and it's going to be a new thing. Like, yeah, I don't care about any of that. I care about the one thing you've done consistently over 2 weeks without fail a lot more than I do about the Instagram photos with all the stuff you got that you want to show off. Because I know that's going to be gone in a week. But the 2 week program of only 1 minute will stretch to another 2 weeks. And then once you get it that long, then double it to 2 minutes. And after another 2 weeks, then double it to 4 minutes. And after 2 weeks, double it to 8 minutes. And so on until you're at a point where you're comfortable doing whatever, 20, 30 minutes a day is just fine, right? Or an hour a day, depending on what, whatever you can carve out. But the habit there, that consistency is key. That is life changing. But people don't like to acknowledge that because they want the big pizzazz of the new habit with the showy stuff that comes along with it, right? And they don't want to just do the small little work consistently, which is ironic because that is the life changing stuff, right? Not the new habit that you started that looked really cool and then you dropped it, right? So like I say, like if I see someone do 1 minute consistently for 2 weeks, that has my utmost respect, um, rather than anything else. Now, it's the same with Renegade Time Freedom. So if you're gonna carve out, and so this goes back to what I was saying before about that richest man in Babylon and the 10% thing. If you want to set this rule, okay, so every chunk of money that comes in, no matter what it's from, 10% goes into savings and 10% goes into your giveaway account, your gift account, okay? If you're like, ooh, I don't know, I don't give 10%, I don't make a lot of money. Okay, no problem. That's fine because it's the same thing. We don't have to go for that big 10%, right? And like Tony Robbins was saying, if you don't do it, if you don't do it now, you're not going to do it when you're a millionaire either, right? So right now, what can we do? Well, let's start with 1%. Okay, let's do 1% every month, or not every month, every transaction, every incoming transaction, 1% goes into your giveaway account. And then whenever you want, you give it away the next day, give it away the next month, give it away whatever. But every transaction incoming has to go into that 1% giveaway account. Now, after you've done that successfully for a month or two, then double it to 2%. And then same thing, and then double it to 4%. And you're creating this wealth habit that's not only going to be a service to you, but it's going to be a service to your community because you're going to be looking for places to give this money, and you're going to be surprised that it's a lot harder to give it away than you think it is, right? A lot harder. Like who do I where do I you can just give it to a charity, but then you're going to feel like you want to have more of a connection with who you're giving it to, and finding that connection for someone who's going to really use it for the good of themselves is really difficult to do. So but that's a happy problem, right? But the same thing, the point is, if it's consistently, it will be a life-changing behavior down the road. Okay, so going back to the time freedom, the same thing. If you can't get that hour in the morning or whenever you want of time freedom, then you've got to start with 5 minutes. Start with 5 minutes where you're doing absolutely nothing, right? Um, you're not you're not looking at a phone. There's no TV in the background. There's nothing. It's 5 minutes. And do that every day, right? And it doesn't have to be meditation, right? It can be, but it doesn't have to be. It's whatever's going to make you happy and you creative, right? Um, if you can do that consistently, then just double the time. But that's your way to carve out the time freedom and pay yourself first. So pay yourself in time first. So Lacey, that was an extended answer. You got to watch the recording, but basically, I it was the extended answer of what we kind of left off with last week, right? About how do we deal with all the. I don't remember how did you phrase the question? Do you remember? It was
Like in the voice message I sent you?
no. It was in this call last Friday. It was just basically how to, keep that time to yourself when there's so many distractions and everything.
I thought that was kind of like the focus of the whole conversation, though, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, I think that answers it. So,
I think it's like it's consistency, right? Because it's easy to start but it's hard to keep going. And it's like you keep going and then you stop, and then it's so hard to like every time you start and then have a good streak and then stop and then try to reactivate that seems to be extra hard every time you start and succeed a little bit and then stop and then try and restart.
Yeah, and that was kind of what I was just explaining, the 1 minute rule, which you know very well. So I was talking about that, but also just for for everything, for carving out time for for building up wealth and for building up your your charities at the same time. It's all got to be habit forming, and it's much more admirable to look at the person that's doing the small percentage or the small amount um, consistently, right? Than it is to then try to go too big and then flatten out. And then applies for everything. When we change our behavior, it's not I know it's not as Instagram photo worthy, but it's gonna be in a couple of years when you've made all the difference, right? Do you have now that you're on, I was asking everyone on the call before, do you have any questions or any thoughts that came up since last week? Any additional questions that you want to get into?
Sure.
Okay. Well, then I'll keep rolling. Um, so I would say like first idea to implement, carve 5 minutes out of Renegade time. Call it Renegade time. That's kind of my spiel, is the Renegade Red Sash, because I try to do things, not try, I do things much differently than other people in my industry. And I really focus on and intend to keep focusing on helping other people, clients, students, do the same thing, to stop doing things the way that everyone else does things just because everyone else always did them that way, right? And it's just common sense that if you want different results than most of the people, you have to take different action than most of the people. And if you take dramatic action that's dramatically different than most of the people, then you will have results that are dramatically different than most people, right? And there's, less than 5% in every industry that's like that. And it's just because they have different behavior, right? Little hinges that swing big doors. So my goal is with this program, not just the time freedom program, but with Red Sash Renegade in general, is to teach people how to do that, right? How to flip things on their head. So the takeaway for now, so far, is carve out that 5 minutes or whatever it is manageable, but do it consistently. Don't tell people about it. Don't feel like you have to, okay? But you definitely want to pat yourself on the back for it. Because if you tell someone, like if you started Kung Fu, for example, holistic Kung Fu, or anything, yoga, whatever it is, okay, you're doing the 1 minute a day. And you tell them, I feel great. I did, 1 minute of yoga every day this week. They'd be like, well, that's whatever. That's stupid. Like, well, don't tell them because they don't understand it and you don't really, care for their opinion, right? Let them throw in their opinion after 6 months from now when you're doing it consistently. Then let them know when they see the results, you're like, wow, what are you doing? Wow, you're so talented. They'll say, oh, you're so talented. Oh, how lucky you are to be talented, as if it was talent and not all the consistent work you put into it, right? 1 minute is not a lot of work. No, I would argue that 1 minute consistently is a whole lot more work than, that one glorious hour that you did one or two times and then you gave up on it, right? So I wouldn't tell people. And then if you do it consistently, you're doing it on your own, right? I mean, if you have a mentor or a coach that you're working with, tell them about it because they'll get it, right? But like, don't tell the muggles out there because they'll just say something that will even discourage you on a subconscious level, and then you don't want that. So just keep it to yourself, at least until you've got a lot of momentum built up where you're at the right spot where if you don't do either that 5 minutes or the 1 minute or whatever, if you don't do it that day, you feel off and you feel itchy, right? That's good. That means now you've got an addiction to it. And that's what you want, right? Think about how powerful addictions can be. If you've got a good addiction, then you're set. You've got that habit in there, right? So if you're missing it and you feel itchy, then you know you've got it. Well, then tell them because it's already in there. You can't get away from it now. You're stuck to it, right? You're trapped in it. And being trapped in a healthy habit is fantastic. Then brag about it after that, right? But again, like I said, they'll blame it on, oh, People will always find the, oh, that's why, right? They will always look for the, oh, that's why. And you got to watch for this because it happens with everything. And it becomes hilarious that when you finally got the results that you want and you try to convey to people what you did and how it worked and how it could help them, they have a choice. They can either say, I could do that too, and I could change my behavior, even though it would take a lot of work. I believe in myself. Or they have to make an excuse as to why it won't work for them. And most people will do what? This one over here, right? They'll have an excuse of, well, that won't work for me. Well, great for you because you only have 3 kids and I have 5 kids, right? Or I have a full time job and you only work part time, right? Or you're this and I'm that. Like the mind will either relate and say maybe I could do that too, or yeah, oh, that's why. They'll find that, oh, that's why. So you've got to watch out for that, oh, that's why people, and you've got to kind of politely tune them out. All right. Because they're always going to find excuses why they can't do something instead of like, okay, how does that relate to me? And if they did it, that means I can do it too. I might just have to change the methodology a little bit, right? But some people will be either inspired by you and want to do the same, or other people will look for the, oh, that's why. So identify it in everything that you do and just watch for it. And it is kind of comical to see from time to time when you see people use it, right? They'll use it for anything. And that's okay. Like I'm not trying to pass because I'm sure for a lot of things I do the same thing, right? So I'm not trying to pass judgment on anyone. But it's just a very interesting trait in human behavior. And it's just like how can I find the time versus I don't have the time? It's the same thing, right? You have to flip your script and never repeat, I don't have the time, and never repeat, I don't have the money ever again. So write them down right now. Write that down. If you haven't done this, write down, I don't have the time, and write down, I don't have the money or I can't afford it. And then scratch them out, or rip the paper out and crumple it up and burn it, or rip the paper out, crumple it up and then eat it, whatever it is, get rid of it and never repeat that. And now your new phrasing is, well, how can I afford that? Or how can I find the money to do that? Or how can I find the time? And now when you're asking yourself, how can, now your brain is going to start coming up with solutions and it'll avoid that, oh, that's why thinking, right? And then even if you don't come up with a solution right away, just go to sleep with that question. I really want to do that. How can I afford that? How can I afford that? Right before bed, go to sleep. And then you might wake up with the answer in your head, right? Because when you're sending questions into your subconscious mind while you're sleeping, it's going to figure that out. It's going to keep on twisting it. And then in the morning, when you're just waking up and you're in that state, you're not quite awake, you're not quite asleep, that answer will be whispered to you. And then for the rest of the morning, you'll be just on fire with inspiration, be like, I know what I got to do. I had this idea. And then you can go run with that, for as long as you can the whole day. But if you say, I can't afford that. Okay, well, so it is, right? Um, so yeah, so make that your homework too. How can I find the time for that? And now it might be that your solution might be, I don't really want to find the time for that, which is also great, right? Because that's what this is about. Time freedom is about not about time, it's about choices, right? Don't say I don't have time. Say I know, I thought about it, I considered it. I don't really want to make time for that. It's not a priority to me because that's what we have, right? Everyone has the same 24 hours, and if time frees up, that vacuum will pull something else in, right? So we don't want to wait for eternity to just have free time. We will eventually. When we're dead, we'll have all the time we could possibly need, right? In the next world, but we kind of need it now. Is that making sense so far for everybody? Yeah. Any questions about that? Anything to add to that? So flip your script. How can I find the time? Is your new mantra. And then if you decide that you don't want to make time for that, that's perfect. Now you've had really, really good time management. Okay. What else? I got a whole bunch of topics here that I was going to go through. Like, I don't know which one to go because there's just, I wrote, was, again, I went to sleep. Yeah, Lacey, go ahead.
Amazing. So, that is it's very good advice. Very solid. However, how do you reconcile? Yeah, of course. How do you reconcile when it doesn't, right? When you're like, okay, so I really want to like make the time to spend more quality time with my kids. Like there's, and that happens for a while. And it's like, but then there's work, and then there's these things and that things. So like, it's like you, I, I think it's kind of what I was saying last time, right? Like you're on a good streak, and then you stop, and then like, but it's like, how do you reconcile that internally so you can flip the script again and get back to thinking, wondering how can I, instead of like shitting all over yourself.
Did you want something easier to do? Sorry, I'm
No,
joking. What?
I don't want anything easier to do, because the thing is like if you don't choose to do hard things happen to you. Yeah, or you end up doing things the hard way. So now it's like I consciously made the choice to do hard things on purpose. And that's been very beneficial. But I still feel like the inner work around feeling like failing at following your advice or anybody else's advice, like on personal development, is like, it, I don't know how to do it. It
Well,
seems like a cycle. Like, you're doing so good and then fall off, and it
the,
takes extra effort to get back on.
did you see that there's a really cool image, I'll find it, of like the solar system and how it actually moves through space? Because we see the solar system as like this, the sun and almost like a disc-like thing.
It expands.
Well, then you see it spinning, but then you see it spinning this way, spiraling through space. It's a pretty cool image. But I think about that a lot because yes, you are spiraling, right? You're circling, but you're spiraling, right? So yes, you will fail at it, and then you'll get back up and you'll do it again, and then you'll fail again, and you'll do it again, and you'll fail it again, and you do it again, and you fail it again. But you're not going in a circle this way. You're going in a circle this way. So you have to have a little bit more faith. Okay. And here's what happens. And this is like the life of self-cultivation, what I call the renegade lifestyle. Renegade renegade lifestyle for a reason, because most people won't do this, right? So the simple act of committing to it, doing your best, you think that you're not doing well, and then 5 years from now, you're gonna get together with a bunch of people that you haven't seen in a long time. And you're going to be looking like around like everyone's doing the same thing they were doing 5 years ago. And you're going to get it. You're like, oh, well, I thought I was failing at this, but I just didn't give up and I kept on going. And now I have a skill set and a mindset that other people don't have because I'm engaging in activity that most people won't do. Right. So don't be so hard on yourself. And when you trip up, don't project disappointment. Don't mind read in your mentors that you're disappointing them. All right. Because you're projecting that onto your mentors. And it's not fair to them, right? Um, and I have this with students all the time that when I hear them talk, like they project that like onto me that like I would be upset or disappointed or whatever. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like I'm not the person in your head that I'm not your version of me, right? That's in your head, right? You get it?
I get it. I get it a lot. So who's your cheerleader?
Who's my cheerleader? I've got lots of cheerleaders. I've written about them. I mentioned them all. They're all in the book. Lee Miltier's in there. Grandmaster Jeff Smith is in there. Grandmaster Stephen Oliver is in there.
That's
Um,
like when you have a win or when you have a disappointment projected onto you. Like, would you tell them, and would they cheer for you? Like, would they lift you up?
Uh,
It's
well, some of them, yes. You've got different mentors for different things, right? So like I have, I take different advice from different mentors and learn to recognize where their strengths are. Okay. So when it comes to like business models and leadership, my mentor Stephen Oliver is like hands down the best. Okay. But there is other advice that I won't take from him. I'll take from someone else instead. Okay. Lee Miltier is like my biggest rah cheerleader because yeah, she'll do my butt. She'll just like I had a call with her last night and I brought up some things I was having trouble with. And I almost brought me to tears because she was like, well, on this call I was on, there's a bunch of entrepreneurs on there and business people and everything. And I'm the youngest one in the group. So they were all like taking a turn chiming in to support me and tell me like, no, do it this way, just don't give up and all that stuff and all the same rah stuff that you'll hear from anyone, right? But it was awesome coming from them and then from her. And I was like I was almost in tears. It was just so awesome that I had that, push from them, from her. That was great. But there's certain things that I wouldn't ask her about my business because like the kung fu business is like niche focused, right? So for like niche type questions, I'll go to a different mentor. So you got to know who, where to go, um, who you're asking for advice, right? Like for example, my mom asks me for relationship advice because I've been married longer, much longer than she ever has.
that's cute.
Right? But like, I'll ask her advice on gardening because she's an awesome gardener. But I'm not going to ask her for relationship advice because she will, by not ill-intentioned, like well-intentioned, but she will give me probably the worst advice I could possibly get, right? And I love her to death, but I would take that advice from her. So yeah, know who your mentors are, and know what they're good at, right? Like respectfully, like you just not that they're bad in other areas, but that's just like their highest value is in this particular area. And if I've only got 30 minutes with a mentor, I'm going to ask them questions about where their highest value and knowledge is. I'm not going to ask them stuff that I can get from someone else that has that as their, because again, it's time. I don't want to waste the mentor's time, right? You got to value that time. Uh, But anyway, did I cover the question? Like it's an art form. It's like kung fu. Like, well, what happens if you're not good at kung fu?
You practice more.
Well, there you go. So this is an art. It's an art and a science. It's a skill set that you have to keep developing, right? So there's no failing it. The only time you fail at it is when you stop doing it, right? But the same with like mindset, manifestation, stuff like that. Like I'm always amazed. Like when I talk to again someone like Lee Miltier, who is more open to like a lot of the metaphysical concepts we talk about, and she'll tell me to do something and I'm like, yeah, I forgot to do that, and then I do like scripting, for example, and I would stop scripting in the morning for like 6 months. I'm like, man, why is everything so difficult? I just can't seem to, and then I'll get a reminder, oh yeah, that's right, and then I start doing it. I'm like, this worked so well, why did I stop doing it, right? And then, but I'm not failing at it. I'm just, okay, I dropped it and now I'll pick it up again. I'll start running with it. Right. So, failure is only when you stop and you give up. As long as you keep going, you're going to keep getting better and better. But you're going to have your ups and downs. Yes.
Can you expand a little bit more on scripting and what that is and how that might work for time and money, time freedom, and financial freedom?
So, yeah. So scripting is, I'll plug Lee Miltier's book since I'm at it. I don't have a copy around, but it's called Reclaim the Magic by Lee Miltier. And did I lend you that book? No? Okay, well, yeah, Reclaim the Magic by Lee Miltier. Probably, I like it a lot. But like, she wrote it. It is more recent than like Success is an Inside Job. So There's more personal stories and stuff in it that are a little more back in her past that she didn't talk about earlier. Pretty cool. But anyway, scripting is when you wake up in the morning and you write a script about yourself. You write it in the present or past tense, but it hasn't happened yet. Okay. So you're just and it's like if writing is a thing for you, it worked really well. If you don't write, then drawing is also a good thing. Like you draw what you want to see, right? And then when you're drawing that, you're visualizing it, you're connecting to it, and you're matching that frequency. And it's going to have an effect on everything, on your expectations, on how you respond to things, on how you see opportunities instead of seeing obstacles everywhere or instead of seeing closed doors, you're going to start seeing doors that just need to be kicked down a little bit, right? But that's it. You're writing. Sifu woke up this morning and he was absolutely ecstatic because he had so many. These new people join his masterclass and all that stuff. Like, and I would script it out as if it already happened. Right? I literally like I when I look back now. Again, it's not. It's the same thing. It's a practice. So if I look back on my scripts, there's a lot of them that didn't come true, but there's some that did, and they're really really good. um, they're really good. My car, the reason I like my car so much, someone's asked me like, "Why are you going to sell that car?" Like, I love that car because I literally scripted that car into existence. Where's my scripting book? Oh, I left it out. I left it in the other room. My scripting book has in it though, like, I was sitting in the dealership in my nicest jacket, waiting for the lady to come over and give me the keys. And then I sat in the car. And once I got it, embraced it, liked it, loved it, and then drove away happy owner of my new Lexus GS, which I love. Love that. But anyway, but the reason why is because I have such emotional attachment to it because I scripted it into existence, right? And like pretty close too. Like I scripted it 2 years prior, and within like almost to the week, I got it. So, but again, it's not like don't if you look back on the scripts, don't get discouraged. Because this is what I did, right? I stopped doing it because I had a few that didn't work out in the time frame, and I'm like, this is horrible. Rather than looking at what did work, I, pouted that these things didn't work, and then I stopped. So I get to, remind myself too, like this is a practice. It's not like, oh, it didn't work. Now stop doing it, because that's failure. You're failing at it when you quit, right? Does that answer your question about scripting? It's not, yeah, it's pretty simple. If you make the daily habit of it in your time, in your renegade time that you're carving out, it's a good thing to do. It's fun, and it connects you to that goal that you're trying to bring about a lot stronger than simply just visualizing it. And you have to use really good wording too. So if you're a good writer, it's really handy because you'll use really nice language that brings about more emotion that charges it up. But if writing's not your strong suit, you might want to paint. If you're even a good storyteller without writing, you could just record your voice doing it and then replay the voice. You could do that. Yeah. Any other questions? These are good questions. Anybody else? Um, is anyone having trouble finding that time, like either going to bed early or waking up early? Does anyone stumble over that? Or are we pretty good that way?
I am still addicted to the snooze button. I am Lacey. I'm addicted to the snooze button. But okay, and I have listened to Mel Robbins' book over and over and over again, and like go through spurts where it's like, okay, this time I'm gonna put my phone in the bathroom and use my old school alarm clock. I have such a fight with my sleepy, half conscious mind in the morning. She is just so much more powerful than my asleep mind, like so and then what happens is it's like, okay, well, I don't have to get up for anything in particular today, so we'll just sleep in and then it's like it's so good that day But the next day when you have to get up on time for something, it's like the worst ever. And I know naps can be good. I know you love your naps.
Naps are great.
They're the worst thing ever for me. And every time I have a nap, I wake up and I'm like, why did I do this to myself? Because it just means I have to wake up a second time in one day, and I hate it. I hate it. So yeah, that's. Can I find time for anything I want to? Yeah, sure I can. But can I go to bed on time? Not usually, unless I'm exhausted. Or can I get up on time? Like, I'm getting better at that, but it's usually, a snooze or two. I'm on my phone in the morning. I know all these things are bad for me, but I still struggle. Yeah.
Yeah, are you getting enough sleep? The
I
first
get a
question.
lot I get a lot of sleep, but I don't know how good it is. And I think there's such a thing as like too much.
Well,
Like I never feel rested when I wake up.
what time are you going to sleep?
It varies. So like the last 5 days it's been like 9:30, 9 o'clock,
Oh, you're going to bed at 9.
10:30,
You're getting enough
10,
sleep.
10:30, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. It's all over the place.
Well, what okay. Yeah. So you just got to make a routine of it and then, congratulate yourself for that routine, right? Um but also, did I tell you about I had that one yogi friend that she always woke up early, 5 a.m. She never had an alarm clock, and she would just do a simple meditation before she would go to bed. She would just close her eyes, like again, like drifting off to sleep. She would close her eyes and visualize the alarm clock, like just see the clock face at 5 o'clock. She would set it at 5, and then she would just visualize herself jumping out of bed at that time. And then her brain just did it. She got up at 5 o'clock, subconsciously it woke her up, and then she got out of bed. So that's one step. But also I would um just set the expectation. Falling asleep, visualize yourself, take a quick little visualization, enter the theater of the mind, and visualize yourself popping right out of bed at whatever time you want to get up at, right? And then just praise the crap out of yourself when you don't hit that snooze button. Okay. And this is why, again, going back to the 1 minute thing, don't tell people, because I want you guys to, when you make one of these little incremental things, like to a dorky extent, you have to congratulate yourself, right? And like, don't let anyone involved in that, because they're going to think like, like make fun of you for it. But you have to do that. Like, you have to reinforce it yourself. Like, this is not just 1 minute a day. It's not just waking up on time. Like, yeah, maybe it's easy for you, so you're going to make fun of it, right? But that's why I'm not going to tell you about this. Like, this is my journey. This is my battle right now. I'm going to fight it. And if I need help, I'll ask you. But if I don't need help from you because it's internal right now, right? You're not going to be involved, because I'm going to be high-fiving the crap out of myself, right, when I get it done, because you need that positive reinforcement, right? Like when we have a student on the mat, we don't think about the 10th time they've tried to, you know, sit still and failed, or throw a flying side kick and failed, or whatever, right? We go back to the basics of what they can do. And to get momentum, we're going to congratulate that kid. So if that kid's rolling around on the floor, not listening at all, I train my instructors. Well, we've got to start off with something positive. Before, I'm not saying never do anything constructive and don't give any constructive feedback, but do that when you've got momentum, right? And when you've got a relationship built with that student. Okay. So we would say, like, I tell my instructors, you got to find one thing that kid is doing well, and that's how you open. Like, well, they're not doing anything well. Well, you're not looking hard enough, because there's always something, right? If they've got their uniform on, that's it. You say, hey, awesome job getting uniform on. And that you start that with first, before you mention you're rolling around the ground, you're not listening, your eyes aren't focused, you're not paying attention, you're causing a scene. Before you start with all that stuff, you've got to start with, let's do something. What are we doing right? That's good. Okay. Now we've got our attention. We've got a little bit of positive feedback, and now we've got momentum to fix the next thing. Good job on wearing a uniform. Oh, by the way, can you sit still for me for 1 second? That's awesome. And you're sitting still. Good job. That's 2 in a row. High five. And let's get that positive reinforcement for that. Okay. And like I think I was saying before you came on the call, We, if you were to treat a client or a student or a customer the way you treat yourself, you'd be fired in a minute, right? Yeah. So you would have the same reaction because it's just true, right? Why do we treat ourselves like sometimes like garbage, right? In the expectation of when we're actually getting momentum, right? Feel seen. Well, yeah, I think we all had that earlier. It was yeah before you were on the call. I know I feel it, right? So if you were working with someone who's just a total noob, you're not going to tell them, well, you failed at that again. You're going to say, okay, well, we did a little bit better today. That's good. Let's go celebrate that and then build on that, right? Let's get that one little habit in, congratulate ourselves from that. And then let's stack on top of that, right? That's what you would do with a client or a student or a customer, right? Now, do the same thing for yourself. So give yourself a lot of celebration in order to make yourself feel good about that little victory because maybe it seems little to someone else and maybe it is little, but it doesn't matter because that's going to add up, right? I don't remember how I started that tangent. Nope, I lost it. I don't know. How did I get on that topic? Do you remember? I was just saying in general, yeah, about waking up in the morning, right?
Yeah, you asked if anybody actually had any problems.
Right. Yeah, waking up. Yeah,
And you know,
yeah,
meeting with
yeah,
Lacey.
yeah. Well, you've got to congratulate yourself for every little success. Build that momentum. That doesn't mean that later on you're not going to give yourself critical feedback, right? But we've got to have enough momentum to accept and direct that critical feedback. If we don't have that momentum and we get that critical feedback, we just shut down. We do that to ourselves. And why wouldn't we? We would expect the same thing of a student or a client. If we give them too much critical feedback, they're going to shut down. You're never going to see them again. Okay, be great. Now you've ruined their journey of whatever self-cultivation you're going to do, right? The more important to keep that person going for a long period of time, then we can build up critical feedback as we go as needed, but not when they're building up momentum, right? And that momentum is built up by just, constant, well placed high fives, right? Even to yourself. It could be a pat on the back, it could be, an extra cup of coffee if that's what you want to reward yourself with, whatever it is, reinforce that reward in your brain for yourself so you're more likely and you're encouraged to do it again tomorrow, right? But if you say to yourself, finally I did it, thank you. That's like you've heard that from your parents. You got that lingo right there. That's coming from your parents, right? That's in there that's generational stuff that you've carried forward. That yeah, see, you finally cleaned your room. Don't you feel better? If you would have done it right away, like I told you to, you would have blah 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 blah, right? That's that old generation talk. You're applying it to yourself. Now you've done the job of not transferring that over to your kids because you've tried really really hard not to pass that over to your kids, but you forgot not to pass it on to yourself, right? Right.
Yes. Yes. Oh my God, so much.
All right. Okay. You're doing great. Oh, very captive audience. Okay. Well, I got to wrap up. I'll tell you a secret again. So Lacey's starting, you are enrolled in starting Renegade Time Freedom, the 6-week course. There's a special. If you guys logged into your email, you'll get a special on it later if you want to sign up. 6 weeks. The regular price is $597. The special you're going to get after this in your email is $388, so it's 35% off, and it also comes with two other free programs. I'm going to throw at you. One is the goal setting, which is a huge one that goes along with this, and the other is the meditation and mastering your morning, which also goes along with this. So the whole thing together is like worth, $991, something like that. But the key is right now, if you want to do it for the next hour, just like last Friday, since you were here, I will share with you a secret link that's going to get all that same stuff, but only for $297. And then it disappears after an hour. So I will put it here. Even if you don't want to do it, if you're thinking possibly even maybe, just click the link and then hold it open in your browser for the next hour and think about it. All right. But after the hour, that goes away and it will never be seen again. And like I said, you'll get this other thing in your email, but this right here live is the best one on the face of the earth. So just click it, leave the browser open, think about it for now. You've got an hour to either chime in on that. And if you have any questions about it, if you're like, well, I don't know, what are the times, what are this, what are that, just message me on Facebook, and I'd be happy to clarify anything for you within the next hour if that's something you're thinking about. Okay, and we'll make it work, and it's fully guaranteed. If you are 5 weeks into the program and you don't like it, just let me know, and I'll refund the whole thing and let you keep the course that you've done so far. Okay. Any other questions before we wrap up? Yes, Lacey.
It's not a question, but I did find the new email tier book and I put the link in the chat. Anything.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, that's a good book. All of her stuff is awesome. That's why we make you guys read it. Well, strongly urge you.
Hey, can you get email tier?
Oh, you're right. Sorry. Yeah, well, one sec. Sorry, Victoria had a very good point. Sorry, thank you very much for catching that. I put the wrong link in there. That was the meeting registration link. Okay. Um, I think you asked me this last week, didn't you?
Yeah.
And
So I'll
at
ask it again because it's still
well,
on its bed.
at some point I will. Okay, there. Try that one, and that should bring up the dealio. I'm going to keep, yeah, the meetings are all going to be, there'll be homework to do during this class, but the Q&A meetings will be the same time, Friday at 7. They'll be recorded, so if you can't make all of them, it doesn't matter, because you're still going to get all the homework and everything, right? Um, and then the recordings forever and all the tasks that I'm going to give you too, as well as that bonus material. Uh,
Oh,
it's
yeah,
it.
that's a good question.
What was it? Can we get a list of books that are good to read? Yeah, I'll be throwing them at you all the time. That was part of actually the. I just want to do it at the right time. But I mean, the course, I got a recommendation for every week that will specialize in what we're going to be talking about. But if you're haven't liked, make sure you like the Red Sash Renegade Facebook page if you haven't already. I will just send you a suggestion for it. But that's where all of my stuff goes, including that, like recommendations and videos and all my content and everything goes on that group. Where do I find the button to invite? Ah, here we go. Invite, 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 invite.
I don't know if you posted the new link. Maybe you sent it to just Victoria because it didn't come up in the chat.
It's there. Oh, I sent it directly to Victoria by accident. Okay, hold on. Every There we go. Okay, now it's finally in. Only two hiccups and now it's there. Third time's a charm.
Great. Great.
Okay. But
Great.
my goal with building Serenity, building this temple, this retreat center here in Niagara Falls, right? My goal is to, I haven't told her this yet, but at the right time I'm going to tell her, like, Lee, Lee, my goal is to have you here do a retreat here in this space. Part of like the byproduct goals that I want to have this space is because we want to be running awesome retreats in this space for anyone that wants to use it. So if anyone has um, any kind of group, anything they're doing, whether they're doing meditation or yoga or Pilates or whatever, any kind of thing they're doing, if they want to have a retreat, I want that center there for anyone. Because when I wanted to run retreats way back when, there was nothing like that. And there's groups all over that can't, are not able to buy whatever 50-acre properties to build retreats on. So I want to open up to anyone that can use it. And that was one of my side goals, is to have her there running her Vision Quest retreat. But in the meantime, I will be working on getting her on one of our coaching calls eventually as well. All right. Is that good? Fulfilled?
Very excited. Very excited.
Awesome. Okay, so link is up. Thank you guys very much for coming. I had a lot of fun, as I always do. I want to do this every Friday, I think, for the rest of my life. I enjoy it very much. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions that you were too shy to ask right now, just put them in the group, in the Renegade Time Freedom group, or you can message me on Facebook, or you also, I think you have my email by now because you got a bunch of email from me too. Okay?
So are you just going to run the class now, or are you going to do this again next Friday?
Nope, this is it. The class is going to start next Friday.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect.
And then after that, after the 6-week course, we're gonna roll it into the Renegade Red Sash Renegade ongoing program. So if you guys want to go to that, and we'll be talking about Marketing is going to be our topic for September, October. We're going to run heavy on marketing and client acquisition. Okay. So if we've got once we've got our time management figured out, then we'll go into hardcore acquisition for whatever business or any product or anything that you're trying to build. And then we're going to work on sales systems in November, December, and then we're going to work on raving fan retention in January, February. So we've got the year, and then on and off. We've got the whole year mapped out. It's going to be wicked.
Yay!
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining me. Have a fantastic weekend. I will talk to you later.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks for joining us.